Sending you a web page I developed with just a handful of some sheets that I have developed over time with my for my staff. And let me just go over a couple of them and do some examples. So this is an example of my K5 assessment template. What happens on this one is the staff actually here go ahead and they enter ones and zeros on all of the particular assessments they give their kids, and we have a pre-assessment, a post-assessment, and an intervention assessment. And all of these calculations you can see I have going on here. I'm sort of assessing how did it do on the question, and then how did a student do on all of the questions. Also, you can choose a different standard, and when I choose a different standard, that's a pop-up. It lets me choose the all of the Common Core state standards that we have in there. And then the color coding of these columns actually represents all of the questions. And teachers would modify this, but all of the questions in these four questions all relate to that particular standard, and then how the kids do on it. So we have all the different units. Here's our addition unit, subtraction unit, and so forth. What I've provided here is a template. The teachers are supposed to take this and then use this template, duplicate it, build unit 1, 2, 3, 4, and across. This particular tab is simply all of the Common Core state standards. We pull that data into the top of the units there. We put in all the students for the teachers. And then this is where it gets interesting. This is where I disaggregate the data that we're collecting from these units. And here I'm taking a look at how students actually do on standards. And again, there's not a lot of data in here because this is just a template without being filled out. But it'll let you really quickly assess how kids are doing on data. And then I have a dashboard. And in the dashboard, what I'm doing here is assessing all the units. And in the units that says unit missing, that basically just represents we haven't built unit 4. You can see I just have unit 1, 2, 3. So anyway, what we're doing there is pulling in the data from the different units. How many kids are meeting the standard? How many kids are we dealing with? And that kind of thing. And then the master sheet is interesting because what I'm doing there is I got my addition and my subtraction. And what I'm doing is pulling in my different students. And as I look at, these might not be, looks like I got some stuff to fix up with this. I have some reference errors here. But what's happening here, this would redraw, and I'll fix it before you look at it tomorrow. What happens, I go in and I choose a new student. As I choose the student, these graphs would all redraw based on the units, on the information that I have on that student. Let me see if that's changing. No, I actually have some issues I need to fix up with that. So anyway, that's the master dashboard, or the dash. Here's the dashboard. Here's the master. We're basically pulling all the data from that. So that's one example. Here's an example that I put together for my physical education teachers. What they're doing is they're collecting the data on this big long spreadsheet here, okay? And we've got filters set up so they can look at their particular classes, take their data. But what I'm doing on this master dashboard, the interesting thing about this is I am pulling in by kid and going, okay, how, as I change kids, I can see whether these targets are interesting because they're calculated based on the initial score. I think I have a little bit of work to do to fix up a couple of errors in there. And then it calculates for them immediately on a kid. Now this is a page obviously I could share with a parent. This is how my kid is doing, and I can go right through my list of all the students in here and basically see how that's doing. Again, all that data is coming from the sheet that they hand enter here. And there's a bunch of other tabs on here. You can explore those if you'd like. I know there's a couple of errors I need to fix up in here. So that's my fitness sheet that I've developed. Here's a sheet. This one's interesting. What's happening on this particular sheet, this is my 6th grade math, and what we're doing here is we're actually having the students take a paper pencil test. And then they're taking that paper pencil test. They're going to a Chromebook, and they're entering the scores that they got, that they put in for each test. And then what the teachers then are using here is to calculate. So in this case, let me go to McKinley. Here's McKinley's class. That's his post test. on multiply and divide fractions. Well, let's take a look at how the kids did on the pretest. So when you look at the pretest, what we see there is most of the kids are completely failing the pretest. And then they teach, and then they take the post-test. This is really, really valuable data to share with your administrator to go, okay, this is what we're actually accomplishing pretest to post-test. This is a sixth grade at a middle school, so we can go ahead and take a look at different classes. So this would be my other teacher on his post-test. And again, we're doing pretty good. He's got a couple of questions here where he needs to take a look. Okay, that question would be one I'd want to examine. Did I not teach that well? Is it a bad question? And look at the pretest then. Nobody passes on the pretest. And then I go to the post-test and everybody's doing a whole lot better. And we have these units set up. This is last year's data. Some of these they didn't actually get done, but let's see. The one to check really here is McKinley, because I'm sure he used it more than any other. Geometry, nope. Analyze DAF. They must not have used it, or I don't have the data that I have doesn't contain all of the data that they came up with. But again, just an example of some of the sheets that I've built for my staff to actually access the data. This one's a little bit interesting because I've got a couple of hidden, I have some hidden sheets, and let me just show the data sheet. So this is all filled in by a form. The kids actually take an online Google form test. We collect the data, I disaggregate it to the unit summary, and I disaggregate it to an actual student summary. Again, I got a pop-up of all the students that have taken it, and I can see, okay, how did that actual student do? So again, just some examples that I want to share with you. My K-5 math assessment, my fitness for the middle school and sixth grade math, summarizing how kids are doing in their assessments. So just an example of some of the things I can work on with your staff, and I hope that's helpful. Some of these have what I call dashboards in them, and then of course we're also working on sort of a more global dashboard, which again I'll say is a very complex and difficult thing to build, but it's sort of the silver bullet, I guess you would say, in education today, if we could build something that is at your fingertips for staff to really work on their data.